Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order for the day. First item is approval of today's agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Citizens to be heard. Any citizens that would like to be heard on any item that is not on today's agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to pay the bills. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of minutes from the August 6, 2019 meeting.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the August 6th minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. First item is annual request of Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Dara. Good morning.
Good morning. I have with me Dawn Bacon, who's the Executive Director at the Moorhead Public Housing Agency.
Morning.
And so I invited her up in case you guys have any questions. So I believe that you all probably received our memo, and I know you're all excellent readers of your packet, so I won't repeat it. But we are here asking for consent to the levy that was approved by the Clay County HRA Board of Commissioners. The majority of our commissioners, as was publicly noticed, are present at the meeting. We have our chair, Ione Schultz, our vice chair, Dale Raleigh, our secretary, Cecil Johnson, our tenant representative, John Wilkie, and our commissioner, Les Bakke, are also in attendance. So you can feel free to bring any of them up here with any questions at any point.
Okay.
And so what we are asking today is for consent for the HRA levy. As you know, it is outside of the Clay County levy limits, as well as the levy limits of any city. We did already appear in front of the Barnesville City Council, and they unanimously approved it at their August meeting. And we went there because of the timing of the schedules, that they only meet monthly. So, and we are also here to report on some of the uses that we've already made of the 2019 levy. We were really excited last year to start something called the Homework Starts with Home program, to provide housing in conjunction with our school districts to children and their families who are experiencing homelessness in Clay County. We were one of 5 recipients in the state of Minnesota of an over $1 million grant in order to accomplish that. We recently had a check-in with the 4 other grantees and the state partners. To date, we have assisted 66 households, 30 of those from the Clay County area, who are assisted also by Lakes and Prairies, and have 30 of those households here in Clay County housed. We've housed folks from the Moorhead, DGF, and Holly school districts. We had 5 kids graduate from high school who were attending school on their own and were couch hopping, and we were happy to send them each graduation cards, and congratulations on that. But what we found during our check-in was that no other program in the state has housed more than 13 households in the same period of time. We've done 51. Minneapolis, who has a $5 million program with the city of Minneapolis, Minneapolis PHA, and Carl Pohlad Foundation funding, has housed 13. No place else in the state has housed more than 8 households. We attribute this to the great partnership that we have in place. There are 40 community partners here in Clay County. Emma from Lakes and Prairies is also present. Her staff, everybody on our conference call wanted to hire her staff people to figure out what the heck they were doing to be so successful. We said, no, we would like to keep them right here. We are currently in conversations with the Otto Bremer Foundation for additional funds, because we want to be the very first area in the entire state to end child homelessness in our community. And we want to do that because we know that it is an investment worth making. We know that it will save in future law enforcement. We know that it saves money in our child welfare system. And we know we're going to have better, more productive workers if those kids can get to school, can graduate from high school, and can go on to higher education. So to us, it's an investment worth making, and to our partnership. The state is impressed with what we're doing and has had some very, very preliminary conversations regarding perhaps targeting all of the recent legislative funding to one region of the state to see if this could be done. We would like that to be us, and in order to strengthen that possibility, we really, as a board, our board and our staff, felt it was necessary to come back and ask for these levy funds so that we could show a solid local commitment to addressing this problem. The other main use of our funds is rehab. And as some of you know, we've been doing that since 2008. During that time period, we have been able to invest millions of dollars back in Clay County real estate. We've rehabbed almost 100 homes and numerous commercial buildings. One of the reasons Barnesville was happy to see us is that we've brought about $2 million into Barnesville in the last couple of years. Most of those are always external resources that we're bringing into Clay County. In addition, we send out millions of dollars to local landlords every year. That is revenue from external services or sources that we're able to leverage and bring back to Clay County and Clay County residents. Our board is rather conservative. We never come and ask for these funds unless we think we can turn them over and be a valuable investment in the county. We typically bring in 7 to 10 times as much as we request in the levy funds. That actually may be conservative in that estimate. We would never come and ask you for funding that we did not think we could make a significant difference in the community and that it was worth to our local taxpayers. And Lori could probably address this better than I, but since 2008, I am not aware of one citizen complaint regarding the Housing Authority levy.
I haven't had any complaints, just questions on the levy itself, but otherwise, no complaints.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think that the citizens of Clay County do see that value, and we hope that you do as well.
Questions?
I have a question. 1 year ago, you came to us
Yes.
for $400,000. And at that time,
380, yep.
You told us that that was one of every 4 years that you were coming for.
We said we had not been here for 4 years.
Yeah.
And,
But now I see on the header it says annual request.
well, this was, because it was the next year, we said annual. Once again, our board, and once they're here, they're appointed by the Clay County Commission, they have always been very conservative. Typically, housing authorities levy every single year. For example, and Don has some of this data, but in Otter Tail and Fergus Falls, they're levying about $800,000 this year.
We didn't hear that last year, though, did we?
I will have to go back and recollect. I don't believe I ever said that we would not be back here. I didn't know if we would at that time. Quite frankly, if we're not going to be successful with how we use the funds, we wouldn't be back here. Because we want it to be a valuable investment. And if it's not, we don't ask for it. Unlike, you know, many our housing authorities are within the local units of government and are just part of the general fund operations. Other housing authorities that are separate typically levy on a regular basis. Alexandria Douglas County, for example, also levies around $700,000 to $900,000 per year between those two organizations. We try to be very respectful of the taxpayer. If we didn't think we could improve the community and at a very high investment rate for the taxpayer, we do not ask. And as my board, I think, would speak to, they do not approve a levy. If they are the ones who are doing the levy, the ones who you have appointed, and they're very, very conscious of that fact.
Kevin?
I don't question the effectiveness of the program whatsoever. At some point in time, I have to question our affordability of it. You know, there's years where you've come and then you've known to maybe take a year off.
Right.
You know, and this year, there are so many things happening within Clay County.
I would just add to that, we are also impacted every time that those studies come around because we do parity with the county. So just
I'll finish now. So we have school bond issues. We have our own county levy increase. We have suggested increases to our solid waste. We have city increases that we're unsure of yet. Barnesville just passed a school bond referendum. We have a large wage study that's going on in Clay County that we intend to implement for 2020. That is going to be a very expensive issue for Clay County. We have our own overcrowding on our own campus. We have a major study going on for our needs for that. We have health insurance increases. We don't know what the watershed is doing. You know, so it's kind of concerning to me this year with all of these other things that we have going on. And then I see on here, boy, if Campbell votes against this, he's voting against an emphasis on ending child homelessness. Well, that I am not voting to end child homelessness. I am also voting to make sure that the senior citizens within my district can afford to stay in their own homes and not be chased out because of the high property tax. And Lori may not get calls on it, but I do. It's my job. I'm their representative when it comes to that, so they call me. They don't call Lori. And I do, when our property taxes go up, I do hear about it. And I don't hear about it from those who may be able to afford it. I hear about it from those who can't afford it.
Sure.
And at some point, there has to be a voice for those people. I'm torn between this. I think I think the rehabilitation dollars you're talking about, I normally support that. I think right now Clay County, as our own entity, has our own rehabilitation we have to do. And that's getting into all of these things that are going to be needed on our campus and those types of things. And all of these things add up. And, so, and then I'm not sure about the Moorhead Public Housing Agency. I always thought that they got their own money through the city.
No, may I address?
Yeah.
The city of Moorhead went to the legislature back in the 80s, and there's a very special session law. It's not even in the regular laws, but it was a special session law that divided the Moorhead Housing and Redevelopment Authority into the Moorhead EDA and the Moorhead PHA. At that point, the EDA received the levy powers because this was pre the ability for an EDA to levy. So it happened before that. Since then, the EDA has had its enabling resolution redone on a number of times. So currently there's no entity within the city of Moorhead besides the HRA that has the ability to levy there.
Well, the EDA does.
Under the EDA tax levy,
Yeah.
but they do not under the HRA tax levy.
Yeah.
And Moorhead Public Housing receives no funds from, any levies or city.
There's no, and for the city of Moorhead portion, the Moorhead City Council would have to consent to this as well.
But if they deny it, then the 200,000 is reduced from the 450?
That is correct. That would come, it would reduce the levy that our Board of Commissioners approved down to 250,000. May I address some of the comments?
Sure.
We share your concern about those seniors and the affordability. The most recent housing study for the state of Minnesota showed that Clay County has some of the most cost-burdened seniors in the entire state. One of the reasons that we have been strong advocates for the rehab program is that we are able to come in with 0%, zero payment loans in order to help those folks make necessary, replace a furnace,
Yeah.
replace sidings, replace shingles. We want them to be able to live and age in their home appropriately, make accessibility accommodations. We are able to remove lead because that's something a lot of folks do not have in their budget. And by doing the levy, that's what has allowed us to bring in those other millions of dollars to help improve and maintain the property values for those folks and to help them stay in their homes. The other thing that the Housing Authority did is our Housing Choice Voucher, which we have 522 Housing Choice Vouchers that we operate in Clay County, is we added a preference, a very high preference, for anybody age 75 or older who needed help paying their rent. We don't want our seniors to be priced out of Clay County. And these levy funds is what enables us to do those things. And so I hear your concern, and I share your concern. But because we're trying to solve and address those issues is one of the reasons we're asking for this. Because I agree with you completely. And as you commented on the needs for Clay County, I would just once again reiterate that the Clay County HRA is also a local unit of government and unfortunately is running into those exact same issues. And so for us, it would probably mean cutting services to those households.
Lori, you had a comment?
Just a question, Jenny brought up, if the city of Moorhead didn't approve, that it would be reduced by 200,000, but that would also remove the city of Moorhead from that levy.
Correct.
So that wouldn't change the rest of the county.
Right.
It's just that, so the rate would basically stay the same, it just removes the city from that.
Right. And,
Jenny?
you know, and I'll echo some concerns in terms of, well, first I'll say, you know, I've championed things like this, and so my comments that will follow are not because I'm against what you're doing, I know you're doing great things. Part of my concern at this table is that, you know, I need to see the big picture in terms of what exactly the levy, the vote in Barnesville did to properties, and then if you add this on, and what exactly will our budget when we approve it. I just need to see all of that before I feel like I can really vote on it. And I guess what's hard for me is, whatever the timing may be, is when this, you know, was talked about in June, you know, all of July has gone by, and I kind of would like to vote on this after Moorhead votes on it.
And we have, it's my understanding, till September 30th in order to finalize anything.
Okay.
And we would be happy to provide any of the commissioners with any
Right.
information. Once again, our board back in 2012 levied and rescinded that levy because of some of the other things that were happening. One of the reasons we went forward this year is there is a very big opportunity to bring several $1 million into the community this year.
So in order to receive those additional matches, you have to have local levy of this amount?
It doesn't say we have to, but it certainly,
Encourage.
it certainly strengthens our position greatly.
Okay, so can you talk to me a little bit about the $1 million? What, I just don't know the whole picture on that.
Okay, so we partnered with 14 school districts across the region
Okay.
and 40 community partners to help end child homelessness in the community. One of those partners is United Way of Cass Clay.
Okay,
They have committed to the same priority of ending child homelessness in the community. One of the partners is the FM Coalition for the Homeless that took a vote, and their number one priority is ending child homelessness in the community. We're part of the West Central Minnesota Continuum of Care. They have taken a vote, and their number one priority is ending child homelessness in the community. At the legislative level in Minnesota last year, there were new funds appropriated for the Homework Starts with Home program.
okay.
To date, we are the most successful program.
So the
Statewide.
legislature appropriated the $5 million total, and then that went to 5 individually got.
They appropriated 3.7 million, and then Minnesota Housing scrounged up some more.
Okay.
But this year, they've appropriated more money.
Okay.
And that's why we're coming back with the levy this year.
Okay.
Last year, I didn't know if they would.
Okay,
This year, they did. We've proven the most successful, and so it's those funds we'd like to go after.
Can I just follow up to that, to your
Right.
question? So the money that the state of Minnesota appropriated, did they tie to that a requirement of a local levy to receive the funds?
There is not a requirement, no.
okay.
Did that strengthen our expectation
Right.
greatly?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my other question is, how much of the $1 million is remaining?
600, it's all committed with
Okay.
the families that we just did.
Committed through
We-
the end of the year?
Committed for the next 2 years.
Okay,
So through October of 2021, we just ran the numbers yesterday, we've committed $13,000 more than what we have already
Okay.
to supporting these households.
okay.
And so, once again, if we didn't need the money, we
No,
wouldn't be here.
and
No,
I
yeah, no,
completely-
and one of the
just need to get the
questions
whole-
asked by the state to us is how much do you need total to address this? We believe that total number for the entire region, because the levy funds that we use in Clay County, we only use in Clay County, is about 3.5 to 5 million
Okay.
For the region.
for the entire region. Now, Clay County has about 72% of that, so we're looking at 3.7 million
So
total.
my other follow-up question is if it's earmarked for 2 years, when you say if this doesn't go through, we have to cut services, I'm just
Yes.
curious.
Because there's other services that these levies funds as far as the rehabilitation program. Typically, the levy has supported $20,000 to $30,000 a year to make sure that we can get additional money coming into the community with that. We would not have those funds to go back to deed
Okay.
to say, we wouldn't have the same strength. You know, we could go in, we can still ask, but our odds of getting the same level of funding that we've been able to secure in Holly, in Barnesville, and Dilworth, and Glendon, is diminished. We're also applying at the federal level from some additional funds. And as everybody know, it takes resources in order to start and create things to help our citizens. What we get then is a stream of federal funding that renews every year. But if we don't have the resources to ask for it, we don't receive it.
So, and I just have one comment, then I'm done, I apologize, but, so, you have done great things, and you have brought in, the work that you've done, definitely is a testament to why you are good stewards of the money. My concern and why I just need some more time and or information, depending on what this board decides, is that, I'm cautious about creating a cycle to where we know we've identified there are seniors that need help. We understand that. And we understand, because I've been in lots of meetings about child homelessness, there are significant needs in all of our communities. So I know that, but my concern is that depending on what different referendums and budgets do, is that we create more strain on those that may not fall within that to begin with. And we all can agree on that. And so I guess that's the hardest part about this, is that I know you're doing great things, and if if it does give you more of an opportunity to get more money coming in, I understand that. But if it is 2 years worth of money that's available, when is the best time to approve something like this? And that's just the difficult spot that we're all in.
I was just thinking, your presentation is almost like, who can get the most money in here? It's almost like a contest, which county is gonna do the best, and that's, and then you say, talking about cost burden people, well, if we approve this, we're just gonna improve on the cost burden. I mean, we're gonna add, well, $10 to $14 a year to these people, their social security increase. Well, we're gonna take some of that away already, but in order to help these people, we're gonna raise your property tax. I mean, if I wanna help Commissioner Campbell with his house payment, well, I'm gonna increase your taxes, that's how I'm gonna help you. And I just, it just seems to be a,
You don't have to help me like that.
well, I'm taking anybody, but I mean, anybody we help, we're gonna help you by increasing your taxes. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, and it just gives me a little bit of a feeling that we're hitting these people. I mean, well, most of the houses around here, probably 150, 200,000 somewhere. I mean, we're talking about just on one item, we're talking about a $14 increase. That's a big item.
I think that maybe one way that would help us is, the news of Moorhead's school vote came out last week. I mean, $100 million, and I think we need to see what exactly that will do to a $200,000 house. And not that it really is your problem, but we need to get that big picture and understand that.
Well, that's exactly right. I think the news did come out using the same charts. I think Moorhead said that on a $200,000 home, that would be another $110 a year to a home in Moorhead. So you got just these two things and I just want to go back and to this conversation and the demands that are on your agency is no different than the demands on every other agency within the county.
Right.
We just heard from Public Health. Public Health is proposing an 18.2% increase in 1 year. So we have far more, you know, our hat doesn't lie just with one agency. Our hat lies with all of them. And as Commissioner Mojo said, we need to really get a handle on this so that we don't start sending more people
Right.
out of what they can currently live in to something that we're driving them out of their own homes as well. Because you know, as many of you might think, it might not happen. Somebody who's living just strictly on Social Security, a 3% increase in Social Security isn't very much money. But yet, these kind of numbers are real numbers to them. This is where, you know, I just hate that we're put in this dilemma. Well, you know, you can have 2-for-1 opportunities in a lot of things in life, but you can't always afford to buy it just because it's 2-for-1, right? So, and that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make here, is that you know, we as a commission this year are going to probably be faced with some of the toughest budget decisions that I've done in my 17 years here. And so getting new requests like this, I mean, this is worse than when we were doing our jail construction stuff, because that we had the fallback of the sales tax, which helped us. But, you know, so I just want to make those comments. So.
Anybody else would like to be heard on this issue?
If I could just follow up on one comment as far as I want to make sure that nobody thinks it's a race for money. The only reason we seek out additional resources is because the needs that exist in the community. And it's to make sure that those taxpayers who are also paying the state and federal taxes are receiving an equitable portion of what they're already paying back into their own community. Because otherwise it goes to other communities, and we have as many or more needs in those. And the only other reason that we ask for this levy, because I 100% agree with the property tax conversation. It's a regressive tax. There's a lot of folks who it's very challenging for, is because we believe that this foundation of housing helps to reduce those other costs over time. It helps to reduce the demands on child welfare. It helps to reduce demands on public health. It will reduce the demands on our county attorney's office and our jail system. If we didn't think that we could save costs over time, we wouldn't ask for this. But I completely understand the pressures that I don't know if I completely, since I'm not in your chair, but I understand those concerns and share those. And our board has this conversation as well, as far as the impact it has on the homeowner. And that is one of the considerations we also take into account.
So, Dara, what's your latest date on this that you need approval?
September 30th. So I think you have 4 or 5 meetings in September. Can't
So-
remember where the calendar falls.
What are the board's wishes? You want to make a decision on this now, or you want more information, or you want to wait?
I'm ready to vote now.
You're ready? You
I'd
want
like
to
to
wait?
I do have a question, Lori. What is the current breakdown of what a $100,000 home receives to the HRA?
Well, it would be the $100,000 is $7, and last year's levy was slightly less than that, so.
$6.
Yeah, so,
So that's an increase.
That's not an increase.
Oh, it's a, okay.
$1.
yeah. A dollar increase on a $100,000.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an addition. I apologize.
Yeah, this is, yes, from last year, it's a one.
Yeah, but from last year, the year before that, it was
It would be the whole set, I mean.
it would have been the whole
Yes,
thing.
it would be the whole set.
Yes.
Right.
So I was under the understanding that this would be like an every other year deal, you know, and now it's,
And if I had a crystal ball that predicted our opportunities, I would certainly let you know for sure.
I appreciate what you have for opportunities. Don't get me wrong, I understand that, but
Okay, what are the board's wishes? Somebody want to make a motion, or you want to table it, or what do you want to do?
I think I need more, I want to make a motion to table this for a while.
Second motion.
Okay, we have a motion to table this item, at least make a decision before the 30th of September. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, I think I think what we ought to do is, going to some of Commissioner Mojo's, I think we need to get some more detail. I don't need to get calls from everybody who is supportive of HRA. I fully get that. I want to get into the details of some of the things you talked about. That's what I want to hear. Because I could also get a lot of calls from people who don't want me to raise their property tax, so. But,
Okay.
and the only thing is unfortunately, is we, going to one of your concerns, is we will, by September 30th, we will not have an answer on the Moorhead School bond issue.
Yeah, I understand
You could approve it for the truth and taxations, and then you could change your mind after that if you wanted to. After you find out what happened with the referendums, that would be an option for you as well.
So in November, we could reverse what we've done?
Yeah, you have to
You can
approve this
lower-
by September
You
30th,
can lower
and
it.
then in December, when we do the final, you can reverse your decision if you want.
All right, that's good to know.
Anything else for discussion?
Steve, can you try to get us estimates from the different school districts and based on our preliminary numbers so that we have a better idea?
And also, if we could have included in that, what the cities are doing for their, they have to set preliminary levies too, don't they?
Yeah, I would have all the levies by September 30th,
Very good.
the preliminary ones.
Excuse me, now this levy here that they want to look at, let's just take the $200,000 home, $14. Is that a one-time deal, or is that, then it goes off next year, or is
Yes, it would go off next year. Every year, it is subject to the consent of the Clay County Commission, since you're the elected body that appoints our
So
commissioners.
if we turn this down now, you get nothing then, or is that?
That's correct, it would be
You have
zero.
You have no levy then this year. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Right.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, James, come on up, budget review, West Central Regional Juvenile Center. Morning, James.
Mr. Chairman, Board.
Thank you.
I'm here today to present the budgets for the secure and non-secure portions of the West Central Regional Juvenile Center. As you know, the Juvenile Center is an enterprise fund. Essentially, the revenues we generate for the services we provide pay for our expenditures. I think I would like to start out with the secure portion of the West Central Regional Juvenile Center. The secure portion is part of an 11-member collaborative between 11 member counties, 10 in Minnesota and then Cass County, North Dakota. Part of that cooperative service agreement has the county's responsibility of payment looking back on a 2-year look back. So it goes on usage. So in 2020, the numbers are done for the 2-year look back. In 2020, Clay County's proposed to spend $192,000 less than they did in 2019 for the secure program. Going down it, again, the other counties, some of them are going up, primarily because their usage went up. Non-member counties, I'm budgeting for 7.5. Right now, we're averaging over 8, and that's without the space yet. So,
Can you reference what line you're talking about?
oh, I'm sorry. The non-member usage is 5423, and that's our non-members.
Okay.
And budgeting for, in 2019, we budgeted for 5. We're averaging right around 8 right now. So there is more revenues right now than expenditures. In 2020, I'm proposing to set the budget based on 7.5 non-members. I project that being more than that, but I'm just being conservative with it. Going down, miscellaneous revenue, 5830. You'll see that one jumps up. That's because I'm going to be proposing to put an RFP out for a therapist. So if you go from the revenue line 5830 down to the expenditure line 6280, you'll see that the increase, it's kind of washes itself out. Basically what that is there's such a high demand for the therapy that the counties and people are gonna pay for that service on the other end. So if they use it, they pay for it. There's such a high demand about it. I spoke with Julie at the jail, Rhonda, Mr. Larson, and about the feasibility of going together with Lakeland and what they have. The issue is that the jail is using all those resources as much as possible. And the other piece of it is the therapy that I need is different than what the therapy that's provided over there. What's been very successful for us has been a type of therapy that's called trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. That therapy goes really hand in hand with the behavioral therapy. We do a cognitive behavioral model for behaviorals. That's what our staff do. That trauma addresses the trauma using the same skills, and it's been proven to be very, very effective in juvenile detention centers. So the therapist can address the trauma, we can address the behaviors, we can work together to ultimately, hopefully, make the youth better. So that's the type of services. The additional cost, it won't cost anything additional, because right now that's what's being demanded. That's what's driving our non-member county usage right now is that trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. That's what the youth are coming to our facility for, is for that program. It goes hand in hand with the programming that we do. So that's what that line is. Miscellaneous reimbursement, 5838. That's, we participate in the National School Lunch Program, so we meet all the qualifications for that. Basically, in looking back at it, if you look at our food costs on 6295, essentially the state reimburses us for the National School Lunch Program reimburses us for almost about 57% of our food costs every year. So that's a big piece of us to stay up in the line with that. Going down the line, going into expenditures for the secure budget, I'm going to be proposing to add 2 counselors, 1 day evening counselor and 1 overnight counselor. As you can see, it doesn't have a huge impact on the percent change. That's basically due to, we had a whole bunch of people shipped out and come back in at a lower rate. I'm going to be requesting less hours in part-time staff hours. The staffing is offset by the medical contract that you guys approved us to sign with MEND. That really offset our costs for having to have staff, but you'll see the increase, a slight increase in, well, more than a slight increase, it's for 6271 and other professional services. But that service, as I described earlier, provides just ample more liability insurance and much superior services for those youth. Again, just kind of looking through it, increases are just due to, we anticipate taking on a few more youth, but we don't need to hire significant more staff when we open for the secure portion.
Kevin?
James has not mentioned, I think he's talked about the revenue from non-member counties. And we're averaging a fairly, is it 7 now?
8 now.
8 now, and that's with a 33-bed facility. Come February, that number jumps up to 64 beds. It's going to give us an awful lot of opportunities, and our administrator, Stephen, can also chime in if he would like, but there are many places around the state who are recognizing what's going on here in Clay County with the programming that we offer, which isn't available or does not meet what we had. That doesn't even come close to what we have here. It's why Cass County joined us as a member, and so we have really, really, really good opportunities for additional revenue moving forward. And I think if you were to, if we got in where we were getting more into the area of 50 people in there, we might have to maybe review the staffing issue a little bit when you get that many more kids in there. But even with that, you're talking of what the non-member counties, what's our daily rate?
$300 a day.
$300 a day for our non-member counties are paying, so that goes a lot to offset some of our member counties' costs. I just think James is doing a terrific job, and this is a good budget.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I agree. I think one of the things that James probably hasn't done, but he probably should do a little bit in tooting their own horn. One of the trauma-based therapy that he discussed, James has been asked on a state level to talk about the juvenile center programming being a model for that across the state. He's wisely shared it, but not too much. But I think the other benefit, Phase 2 of the corrections facility is going to share this later in discussion. But Phase 2 of the the juvenile center is going to be hopefully open by the end of this month. And James has an additional 6 people, 6 non-members waiting on a waiting list to get in for those beds. And so we have 8 kids, or averaging 8 kids today. We're looking at another 6 kids for our treatment program at that point. So really great things that he and his staff are doing. Kevin?
One last comment too. Commissioner Wayland and I spoke to James last year after the AMC annual conference, and we mentioned to James that he should get a booth coming up for this year's conference to really help doing exactly what Steve just said, to toot your horn, and probably to give us opportunities for more counties to know that, come February, we will have that space available. And that's, I think, if we can help other kids, if we have the room to help other kids, we should
Most
be
definitely.
doing what we can. I'm glad that you did tell me you did book a booth, right, at the
Yes.
annual conference?
I'll be
Good.
there, yeah.
Good. That's excellent.
I was just gonna look at, sometimes I look at the small things in here. I see that we got snow removal, ground maintenance and stuff like that, building insurance. Does every department get assessed that, snow removal? Is there a percentage?
No, it just depends on, like, the general fund pays for some, and the family service center pays for some, and then they get charged back for that.
So Commissioner Gross, I think maybe I can, so that facility is charged differently because we also, our member counties have to recognize that they need to help pay for some of those services.
Okay.
So that's why we do incorporate some of those things into the.
Well, because I say sometimes all these small things eventually add up to a bigger, I look at office supplies, you got 4,000 last year, 4,000 this year. So far this year, you spent 1,100, but we're gonna ask for 4,000 again, so. And I added up all the office, I went through all the budgets for everyone, and added up all the office supplies. And we've used up probably around 30–40% of our budget so far this year. Yet we've asked for an $11,000 increase in our budget for next year already. And we haven't even used up 40% of it yet this year. And we're already asking for an increase in office supplies. So it's just, I know it's a small item, but you know, sometimes you add a bunch of these small items together, and it does add up.
Just a comment on the juvenile detention fund. It runs differently than the general fund or road and bridge fund. It runs as a business. And so we treat that as a business, and they don't, the levy dollars that we pay them would be through their charges for services. And so while their costs are going up, we see that in our levy through their charge for the juveniles, not as an individual line item as in other funds. Because we treat it like a business more.
But if, in the area of the snow removal type of thing that you have on there for the regional center, if we didn't bill that there, then Clay County would be paying 100% of that bill.
Correct, that would, if we didn't charge the juvenile detention center
Right.
for that, then the Clay County taxpayer would be paying for 100% of those costs.
And a part of that parking lot is the responsibility of all of our members, not just Clay
Correct,
County.
yes.
Very good.
If that's the case, that almost increased snow removal.
About $450,000.
There you go.
Anything else on the
Yeah, I have a question.
secure?
I have a question for James. James, I'm just curious, what is the average stay in secure and non-secure?
So, it's kind of tough to say. An average stay, some kids come in for emergency placement, they're gone within 24 hours.
Yeah, not counting them.
So not counting them, the ones that are doing our treatment program, that is probably about 90 to 120 days is probably the average for our treatment program.
All right.
And that's what the non-member counties are interested in,
Yes.
is the program.
Yes.
Okay, I'll move on to the non-secure budget. The non-secure program, there was some discussion a couple weeks ago with social services. I provided this handout for you guys. It answers some of the questions that you guys might have had when it talked about the increase in cost of per diem services from the social services budget. This kind of goes through and looking at it, and I talked with Rhonda just this morning, and the first column, she did the 2017s, and she figured roughly around $500,000 also could have been served at the West Central Regional Juvenile Center. These are all programs from the 2018 out-of-home placements. I broke it down to what we could serve underneath this proposed budget that I have in front of you for the non-secure program. And so basically looking at, there's a couple different shifts. One, the per diem is going to go up, but the interfund transfer is going to go away. By doing that, by making the interfund transfer go away, it levels the playing field for the other counties. The other counties that use Clay County's non-secure program now has to pay. It's similar to what Clay County pays. We're able to do that now because we have more beds. There's such a demand for services right now. Yesterday evening, we actually filled up in both programs, which is very, I guess, nerve-wracking for me and the supervisors trying to keep everything, trying to provide the services in case, you know, deputy social services needs to place somebody in an emergency. So it adds a lot of strain, so we're very happy that this next phase is gonna come so we can continue those services so we don't have to turn people away. But moving ahead and describing that with the interfund transfer going away, with me proposing to add the programming that we're adding, we would be able to provide the services. So if you look at the breakdown of cost, social services cost to us would go up, but overall the county's, between 2019 and 2020, overall the county's cost to the juvenile center is gonna go up $287,000. However, we're not gonna have to spend $495,000 that we spent in 2018, 2017 to to these other facilities around the state. We're able to do that underneath this budget, underneath the programming that I got designed in this budget, so.
Thanks for breaking this down. You know, we're in these meetings all the time where we hear about needing to place someone at another place because we can't necessarily do that here. And, you know, I think for the public's perspective to know that just your first item is to youth and the net county funds used were $115,000. And I get that for whatever reason may be longer or shorter, but I think for people to have a bigger picture about how much these services do cost, and we're trying to mitigate that by providing locally, I think is important for people to know.
Yeah, and there's huge additional benefits to Clay County. That the first item, you're talking Girard Academy, there is usually a wait list. So right now, we don't have the programming. We got youth all the time from Clay County that's waiting to go to Girard, and while they're waiting to go to Girard, they're sitting in our facility or in another facility.
It's not the correct fit.
Yeah.
Mr.
And it's costing.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I also think these are the hard costs. There are also additional soft costs that go with that, of our social workers being on the road.
Great.
Meals, overnight stays, they're required to go out and see these youth within 30 days. And so in addition to that $500,000, you're looking at additional costs in drive time and work that can be done by those employees rather than having to travel for 2 days.
And also a lot of times social services gotta pay to send the parents to those facilities as well.
Sure.
Grant.
Sorry.
So, based on these numbers that you show here for 2018, the number of youth and where they go, and I don't know, maybe Brian could even chime in here, but how much of that is dictated by the courts as to where they go?
I would say of these ones, most of them.
Most of them are. And do we, now with what you have in terms of programming here, are our county people who are involved with the courts recommending our facility as opposed to these whenever we can? Brian, do you?
Well, that's what I expect will happen here in the future. I mean, I think as we're gonna see that go forward, that they're gonna be recommending that more and more unless there's something specifically specialized
Right.
that somebody else has that we're not offering, but we should be recommending and making sure they're staying here.
Good, okay. Thank you. So that number, down the road could even be a bigger improvement than what we're projecting here for coming up here. Because we basically cut it in half right now, right, from the 941 to.
Yep. If, hypothetically, if the same cohort of youth came through in 2020 that came through in 2018, the county would have spent $207,000 less.
Right. Based on these
Yep.
percentages.
Based on these and the same cohort and,
Yeah.
yep,
But if we held more,
it'd be more.
then that, we would even save more than the 270.
Correct.
Thank you. That's a good one. Good ones.
So moving down the list again, we're constantly always full. Other counties are requesting. So again, 5422, I'm proposing additional revenues coming in from other counties. Miscellaneous revenue, again, that's the same thing with the therapist. The therapist will be split between secure and non-secure. However, the non-secure portion of the therapist, all those kids will qualify for MA, which means that if I'm allowed to put out an RFP, that's one of the things I would put in the RFP is that kids that are MA eligible, that they bill MA for those, and not the counties. So that might even be an additional source there. Again, going down the list, I'm going to be coming to propose to do all this programming, 6 staff, 5-day evenings and 1 overnight. And the cost increase is reflected in this budget. Let's see here. The one addition on this budget that wasn't in the other one is the new bond payment. That's new. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have questions on it, but I do think that as February gets closer to moving completely into your new facility, I think this board needs to work with James in coming up with what we're going to be looking at in terms of a per diem bed charge for actually, the only member is Clay County in the non-secure.
Correct.
However, and Commissioner Whalen and I have been talking about this a little bit, we're the ones that serve on that. It's almost like we should probably look at a rate for our member counties first. Our members who are part of our regional facility, I think as we have space, I think what we're talking about is we should give them the first crack at it. And so we should have a per diem rate for them, giving them maybe a slight break versus somebody who might be coming from Hennepin or Ramsey or some long distance county. So I think we need to still have that dialogue. I think there's really opportunities again for revenues there, and it's unfortunate that we're talking about kids here, but the demand is there. So I think moving forward, I don't know, Stephen, maybe you want to work with James, and maybe there should be some sort of recommendation to us on what we should set those rates at.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Campbell, I know that the out-of-home placement committee is being brought back together, and so that might be something that as a team we can discuss there.
But I think if you do that, then, Jen, you're on that, right? So I think, and Frank, are you on that too? So I think a key component is whatever we decide to set as rates, that our member counties should maybe get a slightly better rate than somebody who might not. Just as you have that dialogue, if you could maybe share.
When's our next board meeting, James? It's October?
The third Thursday in September, I don't know the exact date.
Okay. Anything else for?
I would just be recommending a motion to send out an RFP, not to accept it, but just send it out to see what kind of therapist I can get that can meet our needs.
Yeah.
Have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, James, good work. Kurt, come on up.
Good morning.
Morning.
Carl? How are you?
How's everyone?
Thanks for checking.
Yeah. Closing out last year's grant, that's in the process now. The 12,500. So the process is to close out before they approve the next one. So last year was spent on national training in Cleveland, our software renewal. We paid for the computer, the laptop, and some printers for our outreach when we go to you and another place, so we do claims on site. Some local advertising just for the Clay County Fair, pretty specific advertising. We don't get carried away with that, just the big ones. And then we contribute to the team building event in December for our volunteers. So it's kind of a standard routine. Next year, so we'll get just to the grant. So that's closing out, and then I presented the grant for this year. And that still remains at $12,500 for advance payment for that. So.
Board's wishes on that?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
And then while I'm here, so I don't have to come that often, out-of-state travel for 2020 for national trainings in Atlanta, Georgia.
No approval.
And that'll
Second.
be, for most of our military folks, that's like going home with Fort Benning and Stewart there, so we have family and
Kurt.
friends.
I said I move approval.
Oh,
You don't want, you don't want to talk yourself out of it. do you?
no, I'll just stay with that.
When you brought in family things.
Can we get a second?
I seconded it, you didn't hear me.
I can hear that. I got tinnitus.
Listening skills.
We have a motion and a second to approve the travel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Off the record or on the record, thanks for allowing me Fort Hood. That was a great opportunity.
thanks
That's great.
Amazing.
Thanks for doing good.
I've never lived there, but we got in and out, so. thank
Plus, you gotta see me, so. it's-
And I met Brian again. I gotta tell you, when I first saw him, he lost so much weight. I was like, dude, is this Brian Melty that gets in the car?
And then we went out and ate barbecue
Yeah.
and had beers, and so
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Fill back up.
So much barbecue. Thank you, guys.
Okay, we have a closed session.
I would move to close for labor negotiations.
Second.
Motion and second to close the session. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Okay. Committee reports. Kevin.
You start with me. Okay, on Wednesday, the 14th, I started off with a Prairie Lakes budget meeting in Fergus Falls regarding I've been advocating for a change in the way we do reports for our budgeting, and so I met with the Fergus Falls Auditor's Office and the director from Prairie Lake Solid Waste, and by the time we were done, the auditor's office was excited about the proposals I were making. They said it makes more sense, and it will ultimately lead to better reporting and better decision-making. So that was good news. That same day then, we had our organizational meeting for the Moorhead-Clay County Joint Powers Board for the diversion. And our action item on that was the formation of, or the chair and the vice chair. And then we kind of set up when we were going to meet. We went through a lot of the history of it, of the diversion, and what our mission is going to be. And we came up with 5 charter goals that we're going to be working off of. And so our next meeting now is on this Thursday, the 22nd, which I think they're going to be dealing with some, giving some tasks to go out and start getting some easements that deal with the federal government's need to do certain samples of lands in different areas of the county. So,
Kevin,
yep.
do you think it would be possible for us to get minutes from that sent to us? I know that just because there are so many things going on in the whole county, I think it's
Sure.
important that
Yeah,
we all know. I don't know who's responsible if we're
Well,
doing minutes.
Actually, our secretary was nominated and he agreed to it. It was Steve Larson. So,
Perfect, well, Steve,
so you're his boss. So,
I know how your notes can get, so.
so yeah, I think that's a good idea. So we can certainly keep you
Thank you.
by sending those. Then on Thursday, I was back to Fergus Falls again for a Lakes Country Service Co-op meeting. And that was a very interesting meeting. And there was some discussion about, there's different pools that Lakes Country deals with insurance. The counties and cities have their own pool, and the school districts have their own pool, and then there's some others that have their own. And there was some information regarding the counties and cities pool is in very good shape financially. And the top counties are trending way better than some of the smaller counties and cities. You know, so we heard today that we have a 5% increase. I'm gonna, that's why I want to visit with Darren, because I think our numbers, according to our consultant, it should have been around 2%. And some of the numbers that I got from at this meeting were that some of the better counties were actually trending closer to a 0%. So I'm gonna have the discussion with Darren. Darren kind of serves on the insurance committee group with Lakes Country Service. And so we'll see, maybe, we'll see what we can do on that 5%. Then on Friday, I was back to Perham for the actual Prairie Lakes Budget Committee, of which then we had the proposal of what we talked about on Wednesday in Fergus Falls. And we are recommending a budget for 2020 that the Prairie Lakes would see an increase. And again, here we go. Another, you know, we talked about increases of tipping fees going from $123 to $130 a ton in that facility. And as that all boils down, that has an impact to our Clay County residents. And you know, you start compounding these things. And so, you know, I've asked Kirk what that number is, how that impact happens to Clay County, and we'll be sharing that with you as soon as he has that available. Yesterday morning, I had a Diversion Authority Chairs Coordinating meeting, and we discussed several things. We're looking at community mitigation, what we can do. We got an update on our executive director hiring process. There, you know, we might be looking at maybe being able to come to some sort of an agreement, maybe as soon as this Thursday, we'll see. And Task Order 6 is another big deal, and that has to deal with P3 contracts and that type of thing. It's quite complicated. At 1 p.m. yesterday, we had our jail, or I suppose I should call it the regional correctional facility, not jail, but things that were going on there. We have some small adjustments there, and most of them were due to ADA compliancy. We had to change a shower head in a particular shower and plumbing, therefore costing us $1,854 for basically because we had to change a shower head, but it also required some additional plumbing to the shower head. You probably have noticed that there's the parking, or the sidewalks are being poured on 9th Street and on 9th Avenue. In that northwest corner, they'd make some changes to the ADA compliant for ramp. That was another $1,400 increase. And then we had, if you noticed, we have the park benches that have gone out. Some of them were done prior, and all those have concrete pads under them. Well, the recent ones that they had planned did not have the concrete park bench or concrete pads underneath them. And for long-term use and maintenance, certainly our staff said we should have those concrete pads, so that's another $1,400 change order. The good news, and then there was ADA, there was some other ADA changes to codes that resulted in $8,812. I think maybe you can touch on that. I didn't get that in my notes very well. The good news on all of this is we still, after these changes today, between the LEC and the correctional facility, our contingency is still $475,000 to the good. So we're still doing well, and that's, actually, we also agreed to close out the LEC yesterday, so that project is done and off the books. And $250,000, or a total of $325,000 of the contingencies is related to that building alone, so. And we went from there to the juvenile center, and there the things to note are the DOC and the fire marshal inspections for phase 2 are scheduled to be completed on the 28th of August. If that goes well, they will be turning over phase 2 shortly after that, at which time, what Steve talked about, James, that will probably allow us to increase our bed space a little bit. There were a little bit in contingencies there, nothing of significance to note there, but that's enough.
That's it, okay. Jenny?
Thanks. Last week, I neglected to report that I attended a meeting with Lakes and Prairies Human Resources Department as part of that committee, and there are just some general tweaks to the policy manual that we're in the process of making. Last week, I also attended the drug court graduation. I think we've said this countless times. I know Commissioner Gross makes it to every one of those graduations, but it's quite powerful to hear of the lengthy process, but the huge change that makes in an individual's life. I brought one of my children because I just think that's pretty inspiring to see how that change happens. But also there are a large amount of people that are in the process of that as well, so best of luck to those as they do that. And I attended the MetroCog Executive Committee meeting. We are not having a full policy board meeting this month, so we did general approvals of budgets and bills, talked about the cost share with the Diversion Authority for the rec plan that's currently going on. We are in the process of remodeling the office space at Case Plaza. The work is taking a couple weeks longer, and so we entertained and approved a 1-month extension with the city of Fargo for those offices in the Civic Center. It seems to be a good thing. We just felt that we wanted to make sure and have the Case Plaza office completely done before we moved in, and talked about the training and travel budget. That in years past has been quite low, and the direction from the different entities was that we wanted to see MetroCog employees at more local meetings and jurisdictions, and because that's a younger office, increasing the training opportunities. And so there will be a little bit of an increase in that budget, and there are some 2018 transportation highway dollars that we will use to pay for that. And then because it requires a local match, there is some dollars in an account that we will use to help pay for that. And that was the reason we went with that option, is it's based on the local split anyways, and so that we knew it was allocated the way the money should be. That concludes my reports.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah. Well, since I wasn't here last week, I'm sure the highway tracking, Commissioner Campbell reported on that last week, which is mostly on the Linden progress there, and I hope that's coming along good, because first game's Tuesday night, so I don't know if they're gonna be able to get to the school or not, but I hope they got some sort of trail made there. As Jenny mentioned, drug court, very impressed with that. I mean, their gentleman graduated with that after a 4-year stay in drug court. Took him a little bit longer, but he seemed to be a renewed person. I was glad to see that. Wild Rise Watershed Plus went up there on the 14th. There again, they had a hearing on the rerouting ditch 18, which goes to Gooseberry Township in Clay County. So that hearing, as far as rerouting, that went okay. Yesterday, building committee or campus improvement. We had that, Clyde McCarthy was up here, Scott Fettig and Ryan Weber. There's so many options that going in there, I think they're gonna come in with a change order pretty soon with that contract that we gave them so many different options to look at. You know, I mean, first of all, we gotta get, they're requesting a new courtroom, you know, they want another courtroom. So we gotta find a space for that. You know, jury, do we put them in the jury assembly room, or how do we move people around, you know? So then different options as far as what are we gonna do with social services and public health and detoxification center, you know? Do we make a new administration building, just build a new building? Where do we put it? You know, do we build another block like we did here with the law enforcement center? Which block would we take? You know, there's, or do we tear down the family service center and build a new, more efficient place? You know, it's just, there's so many options that we put out there. I don't know what he's gonna come back with, you know, but everybody wants more space, that's for sure. And very interesting meeting. Those were my meetings.
Jim?
I just had the same meeting that Commissioner Gross just referenced, the building committee, where we discussed the future options for campus space needs. And we're trying to get an outline of what's before us on this. And we're not looking at space needs for this year and next year. We're looking a little farther down the road than that. And I think this is something that's necessary. And like Commissioner Gross said, everybody needs more space. And so we'll see what happens here. It's very interesting, as he said. You don't fall asleep in this meeting. And that's my report.
Thank you. Let's see, I had the JP organizing meeting, I'm sure Kevin reported on that, and the jail and detention center construction meetings. I had the Clay Senior Council meeting last week, and had reports from all the various senior centers, and everything is going pretty well. There are several things coming up. There's a Fall Senior Safety Academy that's taking place with Sanford, and that's September 25th, and it's a 299-5340 number to call to register for that. And then the United Way Day of Caring to help seniors out is October 10th, and you contact the United Way at their number, which is 237-5050. So that was it for me. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 14th, I had a informational meeting with Michael Stein from Barnesville Record Review. Just wanted to discuss some of the things that are happening in the county. So that'll be coming out here in the next week or two. That day I also participated in the Diversion Administrative Advisory Board. We discussed the Executive Director contract, the Minnesota City County JPA, the appointment of Shelley Carlson from Moorhead Council to the Diversion Authority, and the review of the budget and financial plans. Later that day, we attended the Minnesota City County JPA meeting that Commissioner Campbell has addressed. Again, just a note, Mayor Judd was nominated and voted to be the chair. Our Commissioner Campbell was the vice chair. And the county is going to be acting as a fiscal host, and we're also going to be hosting all of the meetings for the JPA here on campus. On the 16th, went to a meeting of the Cass County Community Land Trust. Executive Director Tim Beaton was here earlier this summer to kind of talk about that program. Really what it is an opportunity to, what came about back after the study from the workforce study back in June of 15. And what they're looking at is identifying, we have about, at the time we had 6,700 jobs that were open in the Fargo-Moorhead area. What they anticipated that growing to 30,000 in the next 5 years. And the challenge for that group was half of those were to be paying positions between $16 and $20,000, or excuse me, $16 and $20 per hour. And so the challenge of finding affordable homes, they would be looking, the Community Land Trust would be looking at providing a subsidy to potential buyers, there'd be, at the time, there weren't a whole lot of nuts and bolts to that, but what happened last week was the the Community Land Trust Group moved forward, said they are going to move forward with that, so we may hear more information from Tim in the coming weeks and months. So, I did a tour of the juvenile center on Friday. As Commissioner Campbell mentioned, that August 28th is kind of our target date. It's we got a lot. It's looking great. They got a lot of work to do over there. And just to be clear from an understanding standpoint, at the completion of Phase 2, there'll be an additional 24 beds of secure that will be available, and there'll be one non-secure bed in addition to what they have now. But as we mentioned during James's budget reporting, they currently have a 6-person waiting list from non-members to get into that facility, and so again, lots of opportunities there. We talked a little bit about this. A placeholder for the Northwest Legislative Tour is going to be on September 5th. They'll be looking at a tour of the underpass on 11th Street. They'll be going to MSUM. Kirk Rosenberger will be giving an update on the transfer station. Chris Volkers will be talking about the aquatic center that the city of Moorhead is looking at, and then there'll also be a flood tour that will be going up north, and so there'll be some additional information of where the bus tour could get off if the commissioners were something that you're interested, that we wouldn't have to go all the way to Thief River. We might be able to get off and come back to Moorhead as part of that tour. So. I think that, and one other thing we just to put on your radar, we've had two requests, potential requests to look at utilizing the county economic development status here in Clay County. The board approved that status back in 2010, either a tax abatement program or a TIF. And so we may be, if that paperwork does come through planning and zoning, we may be looking to bring the business subsidy committee back together to address those two different areas. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Anything, Tony? Right.
Just briefly, the Dwayne Hanson HRO hearing was moved. It's set for 2 o'clock on Thursday. Once this meeting is closed, we can talk just briefly about the witnesses and what's going to happen at that hearing, but it's Thursday at 2.
Okay, Ryan, anything?
No, I just wanted to make sure, here, Tony, you know, talk about that.
Okay. Colleen, anything else for us? We're adjourned.